Hello, welcome to Disenthrall. I am Patrick Smith, currently running for not governor of Texas. Today we have the Larken Rose here to hopefully set me straight if I have gone astray in any way. Welcome, Larken Rose.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, you recently had a debate with Adam Kokesh about his current campaign for not president of America, of the United States of America, and you had some pretty strong criticisms for him in several areas. I'll toss it to you if you want to say anything specific about it, and then I can maybe talk about what I got from that conversation.
Yeah, basically, my objection is that his focus is basically getting elected and getting into power and signing an executive order to dissolve the federal government. And there are so many reasons that doesn't work. But first and foremost, he's not ever going to get elected. And to play the game legitimizes the game. And to talk as if we need an executive order or legislation or any other sort of permission from on high to be free goes exactly against the main thing that needs to happen, which is people need to give up the belief in authority and the belief in government to play the game and legitimize the game and try to look all presidential and basically, as I said, add our own clown to the circus is not what we need to tear down the legitimacy of that game in the eyes of the people. So if he was out there just spreading the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression, I wouldn't have these complaints. But he actually made it into a political/legal agenda, which is the exact opposite of A, what will work, and B, what we actually need to have happen to get people to wake up.
Right, and so to give people on this channel maybe an intro into what I'm doing here, and if that is different from Adam's. So I've been an activist for years. I've ran this YouTube channel for years, and I'm trying to make content that reaches people. I'm not nearly as successful yet as Larken, especially at making videos that get people's attention and wake people up. I thought, and maybe you can give me your opinion on this too, Larken, that when we take actions, we're responsible for those actions. And if we go out of our way to take the action called voting, which has an effect, a real-world effect of electing a politician and giving that politician power, not rightful power, but giving them power to affect people's lives. And if those effects are negative, if those effects cause more people to be attacked or violate people's consent and violate people's non-aggression principle, then everyone along the way that helped that politician gain that power, which he's using to abuse people, are culpable for those effects of their actions. Everyone along the way is sort of party to the crime committed by that politician. And so I would have told you for years, I will not sully myself by voting. I will not risk being made culpable for the crimes of these politicians that get in office and violate everyone's consent. It's a very dangerous thing to vote if you think voting makes you culpable for the effects of those actions. So I wouldn't do it. Until someone challenged me, and this kind of led me to looking at Adam's campaign. And from my perspective as an activist trying to reach more eyeballs, trying to reach more human minds to free, a lot of people pay attention to that stage, this immoral, nonsensical, invalid game. People pay attention to that because these people gain office and gain power over them and then control their lives. So they have to pay attention to this stage. So if I can sort of slide behind that podium just long enough, definitely not to legitimize the system, but just long enough to just explode a little freedom, throw a little red pills at them while they're paying that brief moment of attention to that podium, then that might be a more effective method of activism than what I have been doing.
And
go ahead.
To me, that's, if somebody is having a ridiculous circus and you get a chance to walk into the center ring and tell people how ridiculous it is, I can totally see value in that. And I'm sure we're going to get into specifics here. The thing is, it's so easy for people to get into that center ring and just become part of the stupid circus because that's what people expect. And I think one of the main things, one of the most important things in the center ring is don't be trying to get votes, because trying to get votes implies that the votes matter. But
Yes.
I'll throw it back to you. I'm sure we're going to get in.
Yeah. So like the step 2 of my story, it's perfect that you said that, is exactly that. You say, okay, so I'm going to set about to, trying to occupy this podium called the governor of Texas, except I want to do it in a 100% non-aggression principle compliant way. So the not governor label is an amazing label because it instantly trips people up and it makes them think, oh, what is a not governor? And then it lets you explain to them that they should govern themselves and no one has the right to govern them, and that this process of governing them is invalid and immoral. And this is great. So what do I got to do to make that happen? So enter the Libertarian Party and enter this massive structure that isn't all laid out by the Libertarian Party. A lot of it's the state of Texas, but nevertheless, there's this big process of convincing delegates to go to 3 different events called conventions and beg to get elected so that they can be the delegate for their precinct, their county, and then go to state to be the state delegate, and then on to the national delegate if that's what they want to do, so that these delegates can pick so they can cast their spells and pick the person that will be the nominee for the Libertarian Party. And then you actually start getting maybe some attention of the general public. So there's this massive 6-month-long absurd game that you have to play just to get that label of Libertarian nominee. And playing that game over the past 5 months?
142 days.
142 days of my life. It has had that effect that you mentioned. It's so easy to get sucked in because I'm a competitive person. I'm a capitalist. I compete in business. I want to be better than my opponents. I want to win. And so it just sucks you right in, and you start getting concerned with, do I have this delegate? Am I playing these backroom deals right? I gotta watch what I say so as to offend as few people as possible and, kind of round off or soften up on my principles. It happens. It totally happens. Yeah. And I caught myself doing that. And I've had to have, multiple times I've had to have a course correction. So I've been talking a while. Go for it.
Yeah, and that's the nature of the circus. Is basically what you're describing is lots and lots of clown training.
Yes.
And if you go in and say, I'm not trying to be another clown in this circus, a lot of the people in the organization and voters and everybody else are going to say, but this is the game we're playing. And to me, I would much rather not get the endorsement of the Libertarian Party or anybody, even if that means not being on the ballot, than start to become a clown. And the thing is, the whole arrangement of the Libertarian Party is necessarily not libertarian. The whole notion of politics and running for office is necessarily not libertarian. And the fact that they do the same games of, well, here are the delegates and you have to win these people over and these people have to approve, and then enough of the party has to think that you should be their representative, it's already, I don't know if there are enough actual voluntarists in Texas for you to get there anyway. That would be sort of funny to watch. But the immediate push is you're trying to win the approval of mostly statists, even if they want a smaller, a kinder, gentler slave master. And so obviously there's going to be a huge incentive. It's but I want to get into the center ring because I have important things to say. All right, well then just learn these clown acts. And I can totally see how, somebody with the best principles and the best of intentions going to keep getting into a position where, well, at what point do I try to appease a bunch of people who are basically statists just to get a chance to get into the center ring and say something? And that's, I imagine that's a huge challenge because it's so easy to sell out, especially if you think, well, if I don't play these games, I don't get in the center ring at all. And, a lot fewer people will hear me. So isn't it sort of okay to play some of the games? And to me, I don't care at all about the procedural stuff as long as you're not actually betraying what you actually are and what you actually believe. In fact, it just occurred to me, I don't know if I might even approve of totally trying to fake out the delegates to make them think that you're a limited statist. I'm not sure about the morality of that. But I would much rather like pretend to be a statist and then get there. And yeah, just kidding. This whole thing is a joke.
Well, for the record, I have not faked anybody out. I've been very upfront with my principles and what I would call our principle, the non-aggression principle. I've been mostly rejected. In my county, I didn't even get picked as a delegate. I think I'm like a third place alternate or something. I am like a state level candidate espousing the purest form of what supposedly are libertarian principles, and I'm too libertarian for the Libertarian Party. It's silly. It's absolutely silly.
Has it occurred to you that maybe the best platform and podium and thing that you can get out of this is to demonstrate that being a libertarian rules you out of being a candidate for the Libertarian Party?
If you watched any of my initial videos, I literally said those words. I said, this is an experiment to get data to see if it's even possible to be a 100% NAP compliant candidate activist in this political system. And the moment I discover it's not, I'm out. And it's definitely becoming more and more challenging as I go, right?
And it's hysterical because that's in the Libertarian Party, which has no power and pretty much no chance for any power.
Doesn't win anything at all. Yeah.
Right. The Democrats and Republicans sell their souls for power. The Libertarian politicians give away their souls for nothing.
For free.
They don't get any power anyway.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, at the worst case scenario is still you can demonstrate that even in a party that pretends it's about the non-aggression principle, the involvement of politics and the attempt to get votes and the attempt to get political power corrupts it into oblivion before you get anywhere near any chance of having any power, because that's how the system works. It's how it's designed to work. And I think it's actually useful to have a party that pretends it's about libertarianism, demonstrating that if you're actually about that, you can't even get through your own party, much less get in any position of power.
At best, when you do that, like you said, compromise your principles to get a little extra attention or votes, you become a fat person trying to sell a diet book. You're just not credible at all. You say you're principled, you say that this is an invalid process, and this gets to kind of what I wanted to talk about next, which is what I thought you were right on when you were talking with Adam Kokesh, was that if you're telling people, and this is what I have been doing, this is an invalid, immoral, illegitimate, silly process that has no rightful authority over you to determine who's your ruler and who's not your ruler, and no one has a rightful authority to be your ruler, and yet here I am trying to gather a bunch of people together called delegates to go get involved in politics and join the Libertarian Party and play this game, and if I win, for the goal of, if I win, my goal is to sign an executive order, because I was taken off guard by this question early on, like, what are you going to do if you win? Well, I saw what Kokesh had going on. I'm going to sign an order that's going to free everyone and is going to, peacefully bring about the peaceful disillusionment of the Texas state government and block all federal control of your lives. I've said those words so often I can just rattle them off without thinking, but they never sat well with me. I mean, it sounded like an okay plan. Yay, I set everybody free. I ride in and, like you said, ride in on a white horse and sign an executive order that ends statism and sets Texans free and blocks feds' control of your life. It sounds good, but you nailed it. You nailed what was not sitting right with me in that discussion with Adam Kokesh. It's hypocritical to tell people that this is an invalid process and that no one has the right to sign away or not sign away your rights, and then ask people to participate in the process and give me that power. It makes no sense at all. It's contradictory. It's a fat guy selling a diet book. So to that end, I watched that debate, and I never want anybody to think that these debates that you guys have don't have an effect on people's lives, because it had a deep, instant effect on my life and my plan to try and use this crap system for activism. I loved the idea of a Declaration of Independence type thing, and so I've started trying to do that. I've started trying to compose and write a Declaration of Individual Independence, which it takes me out of it. I'm not important. I never was important. I have no bearing on your life. I should have no bearing on your life. I am just a dude trying to live my life and be happy and free more minds. And so I love taking me, this Patrick thing, out of it and reminding people that, look, all you got to do, you don't even have to sign this. This document is just at best symbolic, but just make a personal internal decision. I withdraw my consent. You don't have it. You don't govern me. I am the only one that owns this body and has authority over it. Oh man, Larken, that was very impactful for me. I wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, and it's so important. It's so important to keep in mind the way statists think and the way they don't think, the things they just assume and the things they've never questioned. Because if you look at the average statement, even that a voluntarist would give, a lot of statists would be listening and going, what? I don't quite even know what he's saying. They're so used to looking at the political circus that their immediate thought is, well, if I vote for you, what happens? And I think I like the idea of the declaration thing that just describes reality.
Yes.
And I think it would be really important to emphasize the fact that you voting for me doesn't have anything to do with this. Like, whether you vote for me or not, this is just a description of the truth. And it's not a description of the truth because some special person signed it or because it got legislated or anything like that. It's just all the way a description of the truth. And it's so easy for statists to assume that you're meaning something political and something statist, even when you're trying to emphasize that, no, I'm not. And when you were talking, the analogy suddenly occurred to me that, if I walk up to the stone and I pull the sword out and they go, look, Excalibur is mine. This doesn't freaking matter. This doesn't mean anything about me. I have the exact same rights I did before I pulled the stupid thing out of a rock.
Yes.
Flaying it doesn't matter. And people paying attention to that ritual, you're paying attention to the wrong damn thing. Your belief in this game that you're watching is basically enslaving you. And I'm not going to free you. Only you can free you by understanding that this is all a stupid show. It's all a game. It doesn't matter who wins. Nobody has the right to rule you. If I win or not, I'm just me. I'm a human being. I have exactly the same rights I did yesterday, whether I'm just me or governor or president or emperor of the universe. I'm just me. It's all a silly show. And it's so hard to get people to even all the way understand what you mean by that, because it's so far out of their paradigm that they're like, oh, so you're going to free us? Like, that'll be the default, like, best case scenario of what most people are assuming you're meaning. And you're going to have to say it over and over again. No, I'm not freeing you. You're the one who can free you by understanding that what you're watching is a ridiculous puppet show and nothing else.
Yes, because people would ask me, I took my jacket off because it's hot in here. Literally, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm going to sign this order and it's going to free everybody. So I'm literally telling people out of both sides of my mouth, government's invalid. It doesn't have the right to do anything to you. By the way, get me elected and I'll make you free. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, so I'm so happy that you had that discussion, and I appreciate it. And I would hope that you would at very least review this Declaration of Individual Independence that I'm trying to put together with everybody that's interested. Everybody is welcome to check it out and suggest, and add changes or whatever. What else? I'm trying to think. What else were your criticisms? Do you have any criticisms for me? Hit me.
I think it's important. I wouldn't even call them criticisms. It may just be because I haven't paid enough attention to your campaign.
Not that I'm important enough for that.
Just think, well, nobody running for office is important enough.
Exactly.
Running for office. But I think a really important thing to focus on is when people say, well, if you win, first of all, acknowledge the chances of me winning are about zero. And the relevance of whether I win is absolutely zero. Like, if I'm just out here describing the nature of reality, the number of votes I get doesn't change whether I'm right or not. Like, if elected, I'm going to make 2 + 2 = 4. Like, no, I'm not. It just already does. And it's, again, the challenge will be getting people to even understand what you mean by that because they're so used to thinking inside the statist paradigm. And that's why one of my main, my main complaint with Adam's campaign is that it reinforces the statist paradigm that, well, we have to elect the right person in there who's going to do the right thing with that power and sign an executive order officially giving us blah, blah, blah. And never mind that executive orders don't actually do that, and that legally wouldn't work. But reinforcing the idea that you need somebody to go give you freedom and give you permission to be free means you're already not free. Even if they sign the piece of paper, you're still not free because you thought you needed the piece of paper to be free. And it's that's going to be the entire challenge, is getting people to understand that it doesn't matter whether you win.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who wins the election. The only point in being in the circus is to tell people that the circus is a ridiculous, illegitimate joke.
So, in Adam's defense, I want to bring this point up, not because I think it's valid, but because I think it's important to discuss. In his defense, he said that we can prove that some political action has resulted in more freedom. And he was referring to marijuana laws that have been sort of loosening all over the country. I have a response to that, but I'll kick it to you first.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because in the back and forth, that was one thing that didn't get addressed there.
Right.
I actually do make an exemption when it for my constant criticism of voting as a advocacy of violence. I make an exception when it's just voting for a referendum against a certain piece of authoritarianism. I think in a way it sort of legitimizes the system. I'd much rather have half the population just ignore a law than go vote against it. But when your choice is, I don't want you thugs in government doing this thing, that's a fundamentally different act than saying, I want this guy on the throne having power over me. When it's nothing but a vote against a piece of authoritarianism, I don't nearly have the same complaints. It still sort of legitimizes the system and still acts as if we need their permission. But to me, that's not nearly as bad as saying, I want this guy on the throne because he'll be a good ruler. It's just saying, I want you to not put people in cages for having a plan or something. Like when it's that pure and anti-coercion stance, then a big chunk of my complaints about voting don't actually apply, because you're not voting for a master, you're voting against one particular kind of violence.
I absolutely agree with you on referendums that are, NAP compliant, right? So, and that's what I was trying to do with my campaign. And every time I say that, I try to put it in quotes, because my campaign, it's just me trying to share some information with people. What I've been trying to do with my campaign is see if, because I agree that it's possible to have a NAP compliant referendum, and I agree that it's I don't think you're culpable for crimes if you're voting for less violence and less, coercion. I want to see if it's possible to run a campaign NAP compliant. I want to see if it's possible to give people a NAP compliant vote. I'm not saying it's probable or practical, as you say. I think it's very almost impossibly unlikely that this will work, but there's that. The other thing, my response to Larken bringing up the marijuana legislation as an example of politics bringing freedom is that it's cart before the horse. The politics did not free the people from that from that regulation, from that control over marijuana. It was enough people across the country ignoring the law, doing it anyway, realizing that it was okay, changing their mind inside their own heads. That's where that change came from. The politics merely follows that, because the ruling class just want to make sure that, they think that the people keep thinking that they are following orders.
Right.
They have to follow a certain amount of what the people want. Otherwise, they reveal themselves as completely illegitimate. And so
Right.
I think to say that politics brought marijuana freedom is backwards. I think the people brought it.
That's like saying politics ended alcohol prohibition. No, it absolutely did not. Disobedience and shooting revenuers ended alcohol prohibition. And then after the fact, they changed their laws to not have a totally unenforceable law on the books. And this is a gentler version of that, but you're absolutely right. It's the change in mindset that made this unenforceable. There's no way they would give up that power if they thought they could hang on to it. Now they're just of the mindset that, oh, we can't really keep doing this and getting away with it. Well, maybe we can like legalize it and tax it and regulate it, which they're doing. And so this, that's one thing that a few people pointed out is going rah, rah, rah for marijuana legalization. You may not want to go rah, rah, rah too loud when you see how many millions of dollars ruling classes are getting from now taxing it.
Yeah, stealing.
That didn't end in freedom. It ended in robbery instead of kidnapping, which, okay, maybe that's an improvement, but it sure isn't freedom.
Absolutely. So another thing that I wanted to comment on was Jeff Berwick and the stuff that he said. He wants us to get along. He wants us to try a bunch of different ways of doing it. He's kind of conflict averse in a lot of ways. He doesn't like it when his friends fight. I want to sort of speak the opposite of that, unfortunately. The debate you guys had clarified what I'm doing in my activism. It made me a better activist. It made me a more consistent person. This book club that Adam and others disparage and make fun of and talk down about is what has created libertarian principle. Like, over the course of the human species, we went from God kings to Roman republics to democratic republics. And the thing that has brought our agency from way up here to this invisible sky god to at least a democratic republic, which is still too far away from us, granted. But the thing that's done that is the debate club. It's the philosophy. It's the conflict with peaceful people over what is right and what is wrong and what is good and evil. And I think we should encourage these conversations and these debates, not like be made to feel super uncomfortable because mama and dad are fighting. Like, no, it's
I know there's this weird phenomenon. There's a few different versions of it. I love it when people use purist as an insult.
Right.
Like, oh, you're just all principled and stuff. And that's like, because a change in the mindset of the people is what matters, the debate is what matters. And amazingly, after our debate, and I directly quote this in my second Steam It article, but after our debate, Adam did a video in which he said, I'm not going to quite get it word for word, but I quote it word for word in my article. He basically said, we have to set aside the principles long enough to like join together for this, basically his campaign. So he just all the way came right out and said, yeah, never mind like being all ideal and, philosophical and stuff. Which he had hinted at before, but he came right out and said it. And to me, that's so weird and bizarre and creepy because the principles are all there are. Like, if you set them aside, what are you even pretending your campaign is based on? It's like, let's not all the way say aggression's bad. Let's say it's sort of sometimes not the best, but let's not like bicker and argue about who killed who. No, let's bicker and argue about who killed who, because that's what freaking matters.
Yes.
Is the philosophy and the principles behind it. And the moment somebody is going to compromise that or abandon that in favor of some practical solution, first of all, their solution isn't practical. And second of all, they're not being sincere or honest or pushing things in the right direction at all. It's absolutely important that we argue constantly. And it's so funny because like half the people say like, well, we don't want infighting. Can't we all just get along? And the other half says, this is just an echo chamber where nobody ever disagrees with each other.
Which is it? Yeah.
Right. You got to pick one. So, and the thing is, it's so, because the understanding in people's minds is what matters, I go out of my way to find areas of disagreement, just like I would with you.
Yes.
Like, we can sit here and talk about all the things we agree about. I'm sure we could do that for about 1,000 hours in a row.
Hey, Larken, do you think the initiation of force is always wrong? Me too.
Yeah, let's say that a million times in a row.
Yeah.
But when we find areas of disagreement, regardless of who's right and wrong, that's the only time people learn, whether it's the people debating learning or the spectators learning, is to say, all right, where's the difference here? So when people are like, well, let's gloss over our differences and let's work together and try, instead of trying to tear each other down. And when somebody characterizes a substantive philosophical disagreement as like some hostile, nasty thing that you're just doing to ruin things and break people apart, that's suspicious as hell to me. Because the moment you decide that, no, we should be we should have our big team that's all, a united front, never mind if we're consistent, as long as we're all together. That's exactly what goes in the wrong direction. That's actually why I kind of hate the concept of a movement at all. The idea that, well, we have these collection of people and we're the people who will change society by No, it's a zillion individuals, and a bunch of us may agree on a bunch of things and disagree on little things. What matters is not the organization, it's not the individuals, it's the ideas. And the moment you sort of fudge things on the ideas and ignore this and let that slide because, well, he's on my team and he's on my side, so I'm not going to point out this hypocrisy and this stupid thing. The moment you do that, you have betrayed truth in favor of politics in the general sense and politics in the political government sense. And then you're worthless. Like, you're not one of the ones pushing in the right direction anymore because you just put the truth secondary to expedience and alliances and all this gross thing that just leads down the toilet. And I'm sure you're seeing plenty of that in the process of trying to get delegates in the party.
Just a little bit. It's actually a complete dumpster fire, if I'm honest, Larken. It is a complete dumpster fire. But I'm, as an activist, as somebody trying to go forth amongst the people and convert new minds, you have to live amongst the heathens, so to speak, right? And I don't say that piously. I just mean you got to go to where the people need to hear it, and I'm doing that, at least, hopefully in the most principled way possible, and not as like an insult principled. Like, a lot of times people are call me, purist as a pejorative, like you said. I tell them they misspelled principled.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you have to go to where the people are, and then you have to give the right message. And if you're watering down your message or altering your message so they like it, that's called lying.
Yes.
If you are withholding some of the truth because you want them to approve of you or vote for you or give you campaign contributions, that is you withholding pieces of the truth. That is you lying to get along, to serve your own agenda or your campaign or your club or your organization or your side or whatever it is. The moment you do that, you're an enemy of the truth because you're intentionally forsaking the truth in favor of some other priority. And the people who do that they're by their very nature, they're sellouts. You're selling out your agenda. You're selling out your actual principles in favor of whatever your agenda is. And whenever people say, well, yeah, but in the long run, maybe he can spread the message of, like, if he's already demonstrated that he's selling out the message, why on earth would I expect him to end up spreading the right message? He sold it out before he had any power.
He lost
like
before
if you're
he began.
and like if you're trying to get in the Libertarian Party, if you all are already going to sell out your message, which it sounds like you're not, and it's a pain in the neck when you don't. But if you're already going to sell out at that level, why on earth would anybody expect you to be consistent by the time you get up to any real height in the hierarchy of the stupid circus? Like, I would much rather be, completely rejected from the circus entirely and be outside saying this circus is stupid than have sold out and fudged the message and glossed over a few things just to get inside the tent to say this circus is not as good as it could be. You're worthless. Get out.
Right. Well, I appreciate you participating in my book club today. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up?
I think that was it. I'm going to give you sympathy because, as you've already seen, and as I suspect you'll continue to see, whenever you are surrounded by people who have the stars in their eyes of power and political influence, almost all of them are already sellouts. And they are going to expect you to play their game to get their approval. And if you don't, one by one, you're going to find that and you've already found this, I'm sure, but that the Libertarian Party isn't libertarian, and that people running for office, surprise, surprise, are almost always doing it for themselves. And when they're doing it for themselves and you come along and say, let's knock this whole stupid circus tent over, they say, well, no, can't we need reform, and we need to phase in because to them, the agenda is about the game. When they are about the game and about the party and about the politics and about the votes, they don't want to destroy the circus. And that's the thing to watch out for, is anybody who's gotten into it enough and gotten enough of an audience or enough votes or enough petitions or enough delegates that they now think, now I'm someone, immediately they are going to be getting in the way of the actual truth. So I would say, try what you can while being consistent, but totally expect to be outside the tent saying this whole thing is a stupid joke, and then demonstrate to people what happens if you go into the tent with principles. I mean, we have plenty of people demonstrating what happens when you go in with the tent with principles and throw your principles out the window. You can be one of those rare examples of somebody who goes into the tent, keeps their principles, then gets kicked out of the tent.
Yes.
And says, see what happens if you walk into this tent with principle.
I'm too libertarian for the libertarians right now. So
absolutely.
One of the main criticisms I get is that I'm trolling. Is that they accuse me of being fraudulent and disingenuous because I'm trying to participate in their game while telling them their game is dumb or invalid or immoral. So I'm not taking it seriously, I'm just trolling. And I'm like, this is the Libertarian Party. If you wanted to take it seriously, you should go play Republican or Democrat.
Right. And they don't get that trolling is the only moral and righteous goal in politics, is to troll the whole system, to try to be a part of it. And to me, that's one of the things that creep me out most about Adam's campaign, is him trying to look presidential. And I even saw him doing this gesture, the universal politician gesture. I was like, holy smokes, don't become a clown in their circus. That is not the way to spread freedom. And so, of course, the people who play that bogus game are going to view you as some troublemaker troll because you're trying to point out the bogusness of their game. And that removes from a lot of them their power and their influence and their relevance. And that, to me, I think it's actually a good point to end on, because this has come up before with a friend of mine where he said, if you could press a button and have everybody understand what you understand, thereby rendering yourself completely irrelevant, like nobody would need my books or videos, anything anymore, nobody would need to know who I am, would you press that button? Wham! I would press it in a freaking second. I have other stuff I want to be doing. But there are a lot of people who are all about being in the fight. And if you come along and threaten to end the fight by ending the circus, they actually don't want that.
Right.
And you can start to see that in people when you are trolling and they're trying to play politics to get their influence and to get on this ballot and this and that and the other thing. And so it's something to watch out for, is the people who, they are not in it to achieve freedom. They are in it to have a fight to make themselves relevant. And that's scary. And that's something you've got to watch out for. And I don't at all sense that in you. I mean, to me, it's pretty dang obvious that you actually care about the principles, but I'm sure you've seen plenty firsthand of people who they're more into the game than into winning the war against authoritarianism.
Yeah, if the core fundamental problem in the world that we're trying to dispel from people's brains is that this process is invalid and isn't the correct one to follow to achieve freedom, and your freedom doesn't depend on it, then we shouldn't be trying to get more people involved in this process. We should be doing the opposite. Or at least in my case, be honest with people and say, look, this is an invalid process. I'm here as an activist. If you want my message to be heard louder, then play the dumb game as an activist yourself. But don't try and legitimize it, because it's not legitimate. I don't need your vote. No one needs your vote.
Right. And because of the way people think, you have to go really far out of your way to make sure you delegitimize it every freaking chance you get, because people start with the assumption that it's legitimate, and you have to remind them every 10 seconds, this is bogus, this is stupid, don't vote for me, don't vote for anybody. This whole game is just an excuse for psychopaths to dominate you. Don't play the game. Stop pretending it's valid, and stop pretending there's actually such a thing as divine right of politicians.
You're right. And there was a couple months there where I got sucked in and I didn't do that good enough. And I'm refreshing myself now. So this is great for me. Thank you so much, Larken. I appreciate your time today. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Did you have anything you wanted to plug you got going on?
Probably not at the moment. Amanda and I are doing the Candles in the Dark things. You've been to one, but we don't have any scheduled at the moment, so I don't have any to plug at the moment. I guess I would just say if somebody knows what that is and has a place where they know 20 or 30 people who'd actually attend, then we can start scheduling them again. I mean, with the 80 million things we were doing down at Anarchapulco, we haven't had time to schedule anything. We're still recovering from that. And then in the long run, I want to make the mirror. I'm still working on that huge project, which will basically replace all the 8 zillion little conversations that people have one-on-one with statists, or not replace them, but bypass them and bypass the entire stupid political circus to get people to see that deep down inside, they actually know it's a joke. They know it's bogus. They don't really believe in it. Deep down inside, most people are already anarchists. They just need somebody to help them see that, or something in the case of the mirror, because it's just an interactive program. But that should be the goal, and trying to grab the ring of power is not the way to do it. I do commend you for getting that close to the ring of power and then walking away from it, because most people can't do that.
Well, it's nasty. it makes me feel icky. No, I will personally endorse, and I'm sure Case and In Studio will as well, your Candles in the Dark seminar. It was an excellent adventure. I learned so much, and watching you and watching other people interact with real blue pillars on stage, walking them through the thought process towards freedom to finding their void, was one of the most useful things for my activism ever. I would definitely suggest everyone keep their eye out for Larken doing more of those in the future. Thank you to Larken. Thank you for everyone that watched. If you have questions, comments, if you agree or disagree or want to continue this discussion, please drop your comments down below. I will see you later.